Hey guys, and we're back with solving cube root equations. So solving cube root equations is very similar to solving by square root. So for example, if you had like 2 times the square root of x equals 16, isolate the radical, so divide both sides by 2. So then the square root of x equals 16 divided by 2 is 8, and then to undo the square root, just square both sides. The only difference is now it's a cubic root, so instead of squaring both sides, you're going to have to raise both sides to the power of 3. So it'd be like 8 cubed. So isolate your radical and then cube both sides. So for example, in this first one, my radical is already isolated, so I'm just going to cube both sides. So I get 5x minus 1 equals 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. Add 1 to both sides, so 5x would equal 65, and then divide both sides by 5. And then x is just 13. That's it. And you can go check these on a calculator and just see like what's the cubic root of 5 times 13 minus 1. And if you type that into the calculator, you're going to get 4. It does work. On to the next one, same thing, the radical is already isolated, so I can just go straight in by cubing both sides. 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. If this were a negative 5, then my answer would be negative 125, but it's not, just proving a point. And that equals 7x plus 6. Subtract 6 on both sides. So now I have 119 equals 7x. And then divide both sides by 7. And 119 divided by 7 is 17. So x equals 17. And you could get fractions, negative numbers. You could have all of that in here. Okay. On this one, I need to isolate the radical first. So I'm going to start by subtracting the 9. So now I have 4 times the cubic root of x minus 12 equals negative 7 minus 9 is negative 16. And now I'm going to divide both sides by 4. So I have the cubic root of x minus 12 equals negative 16 divided by 4 is negative 4. And now cube both sides. So it's not that x minus 12 equals 64, it's x minus 12 equals negative 64 because it was a negative 4. Add 12 to both sides. And negative 64 plus 12 is going to be negative 52. So x equals negative 52. Okay, on this next one, you have 2 radicals, but that doesn't matter. I'm going to put one on the left side and one on the right side. So I'm going to add this one over to the right side. And the reason I'm choosing to do the adding is just so that I can have a positive one on each side. So that's going to cancel out now. And now I'm going to have the cubic root of 8x equals the cubic root of 6x minus 2. And now I'm going to cube both sides. And that radical is just going to completely go away, and I'm going to be left with this part on the inside, which is called the radicand. So I'm going to have 8x equals 6x minus 2. And that's an equation that you can solve. Get your variable or get your letter on the left side. So subtract 6x. And I'm going to have 2x equals negative 2. Divide both sides by 2. So x would equal negative 1. That's it. I'm just going to do one more to kind of show a point. So if you had, like I said, I'm making this up. If you have 4x to the 1/3, and that equals, let's go with 24. That's saying 4 times the cubic root of x equals 24. And if you look at it that way, then you would divide both sides by 4. So the cubic root of x equals 6. This goes to that. If you had parentheses 4x to the 1/3, that would be the cubic root of 4x. But it's not that. It's 4x to the 1/3, which means the 4 goes on the outside of the radical. So going back to this problem, if the 4 is on the outside of the radical, then you do have to divide by 4 to isolate the radical. And then from here, you can cube both sides. And 36 times 6, I think, is 216, I'm pretty sure. So be careful with the fractions and the parentheses and all of that. And that's how you solve cube root equations.